welcome to our next episode of Inner Theater. We'll be focusing today on sound, on listening, and on movement. So we're asking that you just stand up and maybe close the door to your space and just begin warming up with us with a little bit of free range movement, if that's accessible. If not, just sit and listen.
Here we go. Roll the shoulders. Your eyes. Let your body move. Get your legs into it. Knees. Knees. Let go of that neck. Add some spin. Woo. Roll that head. Oh. Raise the vibration. Ready? There we go. Keep going. Danny and I have done this 3 times. Yeah.
Welcome back. Hey. So in this episode, we're going to be exploring the idea of listening, both inner and outer sound, and also how relaxation and movement can help us in that quest to listen. One pertinent example we have is kind of often when you're in the shower or like falling asleep at night, or maybe even in Shavasana after a practice, you might have had the experience where ideas or poems or songs or creative thoughts come to you really organically. And that's because you're so relaxed and there's less obstacles in the path of your listening. So in general, this practice of listening isn't always about like the effort to listen or trying to listen, but it's more about, as we've been kind of studying through these past couple of weeks, like removing the obstacles, staying relaxed, staying surrender to the process, and allowing that sound to kind of flood you from within.
And on sort of other side of that spectrum, there's a connection between relaxation and silence, and relaxation and sound itself. When it's quiet and you feel like you can be quiet on the inside because it's quiet on the outside, that's kind of part of the practice that we're talking about. So when we say sound, it's also intricately wound up with silence and the fact that things can emerge too, like in the silence.
And then there's this idea that of like attunement, right? Like, so if you have these external sounds happening and you have these inner sounds, thoughts, vibrations, emotions, all of that can be thought of as a sound or interpreted as sound. Then there's this idea of kind of tuning your inner world to complement your outer world, or blocking out your outer world so that you can hear the internal sounds more, or attuning your outer circumstances to your inner. There's all different kind of ways to think about it or play with it.
And in one study, I guess study is the wrong word. So in Nāda yoga, which is like, it's like an ancient thing, I guess. There's like, I like the idea they have that there's like 4 sound levels. So this might help you think about it a little bit easier. It's like, there's inner and there's outer. And it sort of stretches across both expanses. So on the inside, we have a layer of mental sound, like Gabby was saying, like thought. And then they refer to the one that's a little bit deeper inside of you, the subconscious one, and they refer to that as visual, and they talk about like dreams. Like being half asleep. Visions, yeah, stuff like that. And then there's, on the outside, there's like just audible sound, so what you're listening to. And then beyond that, there's, they call it the astral sound. You've probably seen this everywhere. It's the music of the spheres, essentially. But beyond all that still is silence. Undivided and eternal. And
so essentially it's all vibration. It's all sort of frequency and vibration, and this, of course, we believe is kind of the foundation of poetry. Right. You know, how poetry can sometimes be one thing on the page when you're just reading it in your head, and a whole different animal when it's spoken, when it's given breath and performance and that voice. So that's kind of what we'll be exploring today with a few different, sort of like we did last week. We'll have different doorways into the body mind, this through, well, you'll see, and then you'll be prompted to write after kind of experimenting with those doorways, and just think of it as an experiment. Think of it as you're kind of just tuning into different areas of yourself and allowing different sounds to be released and to be expressed and to be transcribed.
And even if all of that felt really heady and you're like, what the heck are we doing? Just know that this practice is based on the idea that our body is an instrument. And so when you think of an instrument, you know that it has to be tuned. A guitar has 6 strings. You have to tune the guitar to itself first. So all of the strings, when they are tuned to each other, they ring out in the chord. Then, if you're playing with other people, you have to tune to each other. So you have to make sure that your C chord is in alignment with their C chord. And I know there's probably more theory behind that. It's kind of the extent of my knowledge around it. But think of it like that. Like if the body is an instrument, we're just tuning it by listening.
Yeah, and seeing what arises and what comes through, almost like an antenna. So, that being said, grab your writing utensils and your notebook or your piece of paper or your computer, whatever you're writing with, and get into a comfortable position, either sitting or standing or, leaning up against a wall. We'll have a few, it's not so much movement as like shapes possibly. So just, as always, just be aware of your body. If something doesn't feel right, don't do it or find a modification, but it should be fairly accessible stuff. And let's begin.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get started. And first thing you're going to do, make sure you're sitting comfortably. You've got your pen, your paper. And let's just get situated a little here. That was a lot of information, but none of this is expectation. It's just questions and exploration. So engage with your curiosity a little bit. So before we get started in a couple deep breaths, please write a new question for yourself to answer. You can answer it, we'll give you time to answer it at the end of this. It could just be a question that ends up getting answered later or never, but write down a question for yourself in this moment. Be as personal and specific as possible. Pause if you need more time. We're going to engage in some easy breaths. So just sort of let go. Let your stomach be sort of fat and flabby. Feel that sort of bottom half of you relaxing into the ground. And let yourself sort of just finish and exhale. And then observe your body as it naturally begins to inhale. Not forcing anything. Just see where the inhale starts. Let go. As you may have already learned from elsewhere, the diaphragm right here between your ribs just let this is the area that we engage when we breathe. And breath, guided by this diaphragm, has the ability to spread all the way down into the feet. It comes all the way up into our brains and out of our mouths. The breath is essentially a vibration. A sound. So in a way, your breath is music. Just listen to it for a moment. Notice whether you're hearing it more as audible sound, perhaps exiting your mouth or nose, or if it's more of an internal sound. As your attention wanders, just gently bring it back to that sound. As you're doing this, start to put attention on your jaw. I like to put my fingers, showing in the camera, right where my jaw meets my ear. And if you open your mouth, you can sort of feel the indent of where the jaw separates. Massaging it down as you exhale, giving the jaw a little somatic permission to relax. As I'll run down my throat as well. Breathing may feel completely different from second to second, or it might be totally normalized for you. That's kind of what we're observing. So there's no right or wrong answer here. Just keep breathing and listening.
Now that the breath has been activated, stay here or begin to open your eyes slightly, pick up your pen, and write about what you're hearing. Transcribe what you're hearing. Or just continue in your meditation. I'll give you 2 minutes.
So pause here if you need another minute. So this next step is a little silly. First, just give a little bit of love to the back of your neck. This area is where Nāda yoga says all vibrations come from. I don't exactly know what that means, but I do know that where your skull meets your neck is really good to rub for tension headaches. So there's something there. Okay, so rubbing it and then sort of just fall. Okay, so focus in on that space a little bit, sort of as much as feels useful for you. And then put your fingers in your ears. And what we're going to do, we're going to listen to this for a second. I guess you don't know how long that was going to be. Hopefully your fingers are out of your ears, or you can hear me talking. You're going to put your fingers in your ears and remove them at intervals that you choose. And you're going to listen. And you might do it for a long time like Gabby. That's very nice to do. So you'll do that. And then when you feel ready, you're going to make a sound. You're going to extend it as long as you can. So you'll take a big, deep inhale right into that diaphragm. Feel your whole body if you can. Put your fingers in your ears and you're going to go ma. We'll do that a few times at the end, but we're going to just give a few minutes here for you to mess with the ears, and then we'll ma 3 times. Okay, we're gonna ma. Gabby's writing, she might or might not ma. Ooh. 2 more times.
Take a moment to be with your vibrations. Stay here and begin to write. Notice if anything feels like it's an answer to the question that you wrote out for yourself in the beginning. If it's not, don't worry. Just transcribe. We'll be here for 2 minutes. Pause if you'd like to take more time to write here. We wanted to pose one last free write here before we talk about the homework. If you're feeling a little like woozy or anything, just take a minute and maybe put your hands on the ground. You can do like a forward fold. You might even only be able to get down to here, but it's just kind of nice, like, oh, you know. And then, so turning a little into the critical brain, we want you to free write. What are your obstacles to listening? So take a minute or two. Welcome back. Hopefully that was a little bit fruitful or generative or interesting in some way. So your homework for this week there's several things, and obviously just choose what feels exciting to you. The first thing is to look at all the new stuff in the January readings folder. There's a whole bunch of clips and songs and movement practices.
Playlists, music to meditate to. Yeah.
Yeah, a whole lot of doorways into this idea of listening. And for a more basic assignment, after we do this episode, we're asking you to write a poem that is meant for to be read out loud verbally. So maybe this is a poem that when it's down on the piece of paper, it means one thing. And then when it's read out loud by your voice with your intonations, it sort of like transforms in meaning. So if that means something to you, I think it could be really fun to play with that. If it doesn't mean anything to you, just skip it.
You could also, so this whole idea of like inner sound also relates to the idea of like implicate sound, which is that there's sort of an inherent meaning in sound that's different than our associations that we have to things. So if there's like a symbol of like I don't know, a symbol of a woman in a skirt on a porta potty, like we know what that means, as compared to like the word like splont, like I don't know what the heck went through your head.
Well, after the porta potty thing.
yeah, I guess that's see. Well, there
Right.
it is. Yeah, like
connection.
Mm-hmm. Like, of course, I would say that. Anyways, so the point being that we're thinking of that as this idea of implicate sound, and the assignment for that would be to write something that doesn't make sense, or it doesn't have to make sense, but just approaching it through sound. So like you're writing through sound as opposed to like words.
And we have some resources for that in the folder if you want to explore some fun stuff.
Right. Yeah, we have there's really good sound poetry in there. Yeah.
So another assignment this week is to tune into how you're feeling at random times during the week, or when you start to feel a particular emotional shift inside of you or a very stark emotion. Notice what the voice inside you is saying and write it down. So for example, if you're feeling like particularly hopeless, maybe taking a moment to notice that and opening your notes app on your phone or grabbing your notebook and just taking a few minutes to write the vibration of that feeling. And then maybe if later you're feeling excited, taking a moment to open that same notes app and kind of translate the sound of that feeling. Just practice kind of that active translation. And just, again, it's an experiment. Just see where it takes you. It might end up in poems. It might be notes. It might be nonsense.
Yeah, and I mean, this ends up being like a poetics because you're not you're listening, so you're not necessarily even actively pursuing anything while you're doing the translation. You're just writing down what's there.
Yeah, documenting.
Mm-hmm. I'll mention real quick, if you're interested in that one, you could make like a little grid and like put different emotions in it, and then you could maybe later like compare. This kind of reminds me of like Jess's poem boxes. You could maybe like later compare like what did my like hopeless voice look like, what did my joyful voice look like, and sort of being able to look at them all in the same place could be interesting.
And then last fun assignment, this one goes out to Meg. I think you're in this class. Find the back of like a cereal box or a menu or just something like really arbitrary, not a book, not a poem, but like, you know, the directions on the back of a shampoo bottle, and practice reading it out loud in a way that that you're trying to convey a particular voice. So maybe in a way that's tragic, or in a way that's, dramatic or beautiful or hilarious. So like the content has nothing to do with the way that it's being delivered, with the sound and the vibration under it. And we challenge you to take a video of yourself doing this and posting it on the Slack. Also, please post anything and everything on the Slack that you'd like to share with the group. We'd love to see how you're thinking or moving through these videos, and super appreciate everyone who's been commenting so far. So
hope that you got something out of this one, and we will see you soon.
Next week. Oh, there's a live, we're having a live optional meetup, just as a opportunity to connect via Zoom. That's happening Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, next week, the 26th, I believe, at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So 9 a.m. Pacific Time. So, drop in with a cup of coffee, say hi. Last time there were very few people there, so, it'll probably be just us and maybe Shawnee and April. Come say hi.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon.
See you next week.